Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea is very close as this amazing January transfer window for Chelsea continues. Let's get into it. So look, we spoke yesterday about Chelsea and this amazing £200 million spend in this January transfer window. Obviously it's shared out. We know that it's distributed over 7 years with most of these contracts, and the same thing will happen with Enzo Fernandez. But David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano and the people in the industry are saying that this is highly likely to happen in the final day or so of the transfer window. Remember, Chelsea did go for Enzo Fernandez at the start of the window. They're back in at the end of the window, and that is why I think Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea is basically going to happen. The fact that the door has been reopened by Benfica at the back end of this transfer window and that Chelsea are in advanced negotiations, I don't think this won't happen now. Why is it happening? Why it didn't happen at the start of the window? What he brings to Chelsea in the Premier League we'll get into. But look, Caicedo, Arsenal, Brighton apparently saying no, under no circumstances that won't happen. Chelsea could never pay the 60 or 70 million pounds up front for Caicedo anyway, so they were basically out of that race. That's Arsenal and Caicedo, and that probably won't happen if Brighton hold out, but there's still time for Arsenal there. But for Chelsea, Caicedo wasn't realistic. They really need a midfielder. You look at that Chelsea side, as I say, I'll give you my thoughts on that Chelsea side over the next 18 months in a minute, and I think they're exciting ones, but that Chelsea side, whatever they're going to achieve this season, really, their midfield is still weak. And they have got good players there. Kovacic is a player that I like. You've got people like Mason Mount, Conor Gallagher's coming through. Maybe Kante comes back from injury. But they need, they need investment in that area. They need a spark in that area. And I'm a big fan of Enzo Fernandez, but I'm also a big fan of the January transfer window. I've said this before. We saw it with Diaz last year at Liverpool. I know he's been injured this year, but I mean, that worked really well for Liverpool because you bring a player in, he hits the ground running, he adapts to the Premier League, and then the season after that, you're not waiting for him to adapt because you bought him in the summer. United did it with Bruno a couple of years ago. So waiting till the summer for Chelsea's no point. There's no point. You could be working on another deal in the summer. So Enzo Fernandez coming in now, all right, there might be a bit of adjustment, but Chelsea's season can only get better anyway. It's not a great season for them. So bringing players in and using these next few months to bed them in is a great idea. So look, it's going to cost them about 120 million euros. That's a lot of money. They will be doing it in instalments like they have done with everybody else. It will probably be an 8-year contract or a 7-year contract. It will take Chelsea's spend to £300 million in January if they buy Enzo Fernandez. That's a fact. It will be around 300 million quid, which is probably more than most Premier League sides spend in a whole summer. It is. It's a huge amount of money in January. But there is an aggression, there is a relentlessness, and there is an ambition at Chelsea that we can all look at as non-Chelsea fans and go, it's ridiculous. But it's not ridiculous what they're doing. They are all players that they need, and it is a new manager that they want to back long term, and they want to give him the best opportunity. Chelsea have done this before. I remember they had a summer. Didn't they have a summer like this with Lampard where they did it as well? And ultimately Lampard got sacked at Christmas. But it's super backing for a manager. And I think with this one, it sort of completes what they needed to do. I still think they need a number 9. And maybe there's not a number 9 they can get. But that means they can focus on the number 9 position in the summer, knowing that in January they've brought in the midfielder, the defenders, the wide players. I think they can focus on the striker in the summer, and maybe it would be an Osman or someone like that. But in Enzo Fernandez, you're getting a 22-year-old World Cup winner. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of investment. But you're not just getting that. You're getting a player that a year ago was playing in Argentina and then moved to Benfica. He's only been at Benfica for a year. A year ago, he could have been bought for about 20 million. A year later, it's going to cost you 120 million euros, isn't it? It's a lot of money, but he's a really good player. I always judge players on, would other clubs like them? And I think Arsenal would, Man United would, Liverpool would. So you're buying a player that Real Madrid would like as well. He is a top player. This is not a player where you're spending a lot of money on somebody that no one else would spend. This is not like £80 million for someone like, Harry Maguire. I don't think there was many other clubs that were going to do that. That doesn't mean Harry Maguire's not a good player, but Enzo Fernandez is a player that everybody would want. He should suit the Premier League really well as well. That Argentinian tenacity, he's got that. He's also got that Argentinian ball playing ability in the midfield. And I say Argentinian, it's not like Spanish and French midfielders don't have that, but he has got that tenacity. He has got that ability to read the game. He has got the ability to run a game with his passing. He's got a decent shot on him. I think he's made for the Premier League. But he's probably made for Real Madrid. He's probably made for Bayern Munich. He is a top player. That doesn't mean he's going to be a guaranteed success in the Premier League or at Chelsea. But I can't sit here and lie, and I don't think anybody can, and say Chelsea are overpaying there. That's not worth the risk. It is. There is a jealousy there. Of course there is. I would love Manchester United to be buying a player like this. I think he'd be perfect for what Manchester United need next to Casemiro. So he's going to be perfect for what Chelsea need as they look to rebuild the engine room of their team, which is, in all due respect to Kante and Kovacic and even Jorginho, they've been there a long time, and it does need transition. It does need a new start. And for Graham Potter, what a player to bring in and have at your club as you look to rebuild Chelsea, and he has got the time to do that as well. I think that there was a lot of frustration from Chelsea fans, and this Potter out talk has been ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. But some Chelsea fans do feel like that. But I think when you buy 6 or 7 players in a January transfer window, it's like buying 6 or 7 players in a summer transfer window. I don't think any fan of football or Chelsea can sit there and go, well, he's got to get results straight away. It buys him, psychologically, it gives him time, because I think people weren't giving him time, but not really thinking about the fact that he hasn't inherited any of the players that he wants. He's now got a whole raft of players that he wants or that have come in under his watch, and that will give him a bit of transition time. And it will also rejuvenate the dressing room in a sense that these players will want to come and do well. Whereas maybe the previous players, I don't know. You don't know what the dressing room's like. So, yeah, I think Enzo Fernandez is a fantastic signing for Chelsea. And I do think it gets done. It may well be done by the time you're watching this video, but I do think it gets done because, as I say, I think how this has got done is that Chelsea desperately want a top-level midfielder. Hence, they've been in for Caicedo. Hence, they were in for Enzo Fernandez at the start of the window. I think at the start of the window, Benfica just said no. The financial package that you're offering us, we don't want. It's not the full. We want the release clause. Benfica clearly don't have a problem with the money being paid over the next 6 or 7 years. They just want the release clause, and I think Chelsea are going to hit that release clause and then spread it out over the next 7 years, like they have done with Mudryk and other players. So I see it getting done. The player always wanted to go to Chelsea. I mean, that's not to say he wouldn't have liked to go to Real Madrid or Manchester United, but Chelsea showed the interest. He wants to go. And I think Benfica will see the value in doing that deal. And I'd be very surprised if they don't do it. It would certainly be very surprising if Chelsea went in for him twice in one month and didn't get the deal done. And I feel that for the Premier League, this is really exciting. And sometimes that's what football's all about. This is not the United Stand. For the Premier League, it's really exciting to bring a player like that into the league. And somebody described the Premier League as the Super League the other day, and it is, and that's not. We don't need to be guilty about that. Serie A used to be like this when I was a kid. All the top players were going to play football there, and this is now what the Premier League is becoming. This is why the Real Madrids of this world are desperate to start their own Super League, because the Premier League is the Super League. We don't need a Super League. We've got I like the way the Champions League works, and I like the way the Premier League works. I don't need a Super League, but this is why the rest of Europe wants a Super League, because they are struggling, really struggling, to maintain the competition that the Premier League and the revenues that the Premier League generates. And £300 million in a January transfer window. Wow, that is unbelievable. It's an unbelievable spend by Chelsea, but it could be a sign of things to come. And who's to say they're not going to go and spend again in the summer? But you can't argue with signings like this. And as much as I'd love him to be wearing a red shirt for United, I do think that Chelsea are going to be a very interesting watch. How quickly Potter can get this to work, I don't know. But they've brought in some really good players. And I think that it's going to be a very interesting 18 months for Chelsea to see how it all comes together. Can I just say as well, I've dropped the link in the video description. I've not said this on That's Football. United Stand's going on tour in the March international break. I say United Stand, it is the United Stand tour, but it's basically going to be a lot of me and a lot of topical stuff. So we've sold out our Dublin dates. Manchester's nearly gone. I mean, you might get a ticket in Manchester if you're lucky. The link's in the video description. But we still have got tickets for the London event, which is March. But it's on the international break in March. So if you want to fancy coming down, get involved. It won't just all be about United. We'll be chatting and having a good evening. So love to see you there. Links in the video description for that if you fancy it, especially the London one. Smash a like on the video, subscribe, and I'll speak to you on the next one. What are your thoughts on Chelsea and Enzo Fernandez?